Previously on Chaos Head Noah.
僕はね、近いうちに死ぬんだ。
Together with the sound of the breaking waves, I heard Shogun's voice. From where I was standing, I couldn't see his expression. The tone of his voice didn't carry any particular feeling of lamentation. In reality, his words felt like they were simply casual, passing remarks.
この体を見てもらえればわかると思う。
Small, wrinkled, and withered away. All of his hair had fallen out.
先天的な病なんだ。僕の体の成長は発症した10歳の段階で止まってる。そして老化してる。
Was he aging prematurely? That illness was supposed to be rare, affecting only 1 out of every 8 million people.
10歳って。
A gruesome scene etched into my memories began to rise to the surface.
リミにはいつも力を使うなって怒られたよ。
彼女は君を助けたいでしょう。
でも僕はリミの忠告に従うわけにはいかない。今の危機的状況は僕の IR2 がきっかけなんだから。
IR2. That strange scribble on the back of my essay.
IR2 はある科学者の目に留まり、やがてのぞみテクノロジー社によって研究が始められた。それがプロジェクトノア。言ってみれば人工的にギガロマニアックスの能力を発生させる装置。僕が計画に気づくことができたのはリミと出会ったからなんだ。彼女がひどい拷問を受けていたのはそのプロジェクトの一環だった。ノアのシステムを効率化するために必要だったのがコード3。
Hence why they need all of us.
ギガロマニアックスが力を使う過程で放出する特殊な脳波の。
現在までに確認された死傷者の数は233人ですが、この数は最終的に3万人を超えるとみられ、気象庁の発表によりますと、今回の地震の規模は震度7、マグニチュードは 7.8 と関東大震災に匹敵する規模です。渋谷では建物の一部が倒壊し、大規模な陥没も発生している模様です。首都高渋谷線が高架の倒壊により全線通行止め。公共交通機関では山手線など全線が運転を見合わせております。
Static mixed in with the news, until eventually, the reporter spoke no longer.
ダメだわ。また聞こえなくなった。
More people than I could count were lying on the ground. Blood and guts clung to the scattered debris. Some remained motionless. Some moaned in pain. Some screamed for help. Some were covered in dust, crawling on all fours without a care as to how I made them appear. Some only cried, tightly cradling another motionless body in their arms. I could smell all the blood. The rusty smell mixed with the stench of something burning. Everything was covered with a thick odor of dust. Far in the distance, plumes of black smoke rose like smoke signals. This was the power of Noah 2. It was horrifying. This was already on the scale of a weapon of mass destruction. Now I understood why Shogun wanted to put an end to this.
こんなのひどいよ。ナナはお兄に文句ばっかり言ってたけど。
Though her brother did not reply, she clung to his small body all the same. letting loose a flood of tears.
お兄のこと一度だって忘れたいなんて思ったことなかったのに。勝手だよ。わがまますぎだよ。
The sound of metal lightly scraping against something came from within her brother's clothes. And a moment later, something slipped free from his pocket. The bangle. It was what Nanami had been searching for. When she lost her right hand, she lost it as well. A flimsy, cheap bangle of a snowflake motif. Confused, she stared at her real brother's face. But his eyes, buried in wrinkles, did not open in return.
お兄は本当のお兄じゃないかもしれないけど、頼りにならなくておたくさんで、アニメキャラのお人形さんばっかり集めてて、口が悪くて愛想もなくて意地悪なことばっかり言うけど、お兄もナナのお兄だよ。
Trying her hardest to fight back her tears, Nanami smiled as best she could.
ありがとう、ナナミ。
Upon gazing at his expression, she saw that her other brother seemed a little embarrassed. And with that, relief washed over Nanami, before slowly putting her consciousness to rest. No. Were you protecting me? Overcome with disbelief, Sana fixed her gaze on the pool of blood spilling over the tile floor.
言葉は混沌だ。
Gasping for air, her father weakly spoke.
お前は素直すぎるんだ、セナ。そんなお前がとても悲しく、そして愛おしいよ。
The bullet had been meant for Sana, but Hachino had taken it in her place. She had been trying to take her father's life, but he had given it for her instead.
ふざけるな。
Sana tightened her grip on the D-sword she held in her hand.
まあ別に構わないっすよね。畑の親子にはどっちも死んでもらうつもりだったんで。
An odd noise echoed throughout the platform, a sound Sana instantly recognized as a Noah 2 terminal. How long has that sound been going on for?
何をした。
妄想シンクロ。
Assimilation onto a delusion, erosion onto the mind. Like two ripples negating one another, like two wavelengths resonating with one another, entangling together, melting together. A fate which distorts, created by one, a fate which is distorted, created by another. Switching them out, switching them in. There's no way that's possible, Sua thought to himself. There's no way that's possible. Sua's expression laid his thoughts bare.
神の先兵ならメシアと同じように朽ち果てろ。
Takumi tossed the stake away. I tossed the stake away. Color was quickly fading from Sua's field of vision. Light was quickly fading from Sua's eyes.
それと僕は救いなんかいらないよ。
Sua could no longer reply. Without falling to the ground, He breathed his final breath.
セナ。
西条、お願い。
Sena raised her head. The teary expression on her face now was nothing like the stern one she always wore.
ノア2を壊して。
Suffering from a terrible grief, she spoke with the fragility of a girl who had just lost the only family she had left.
僕を殺そうとしたくせに、君のお願いなんて聞く義理はないよ。
匠さん。
Turning my back towards Sena and Kozupi, I began to march down the tunnel to Shibuya Station. Before me were two giant gaping holes. A deep darkness stretched deep inside both of them. Passing through them would be the quickest way to get to Shibuya Station.
僕は僕の目的のためだけにノア2を壊す。絶対に。
I had a feeling Sena said something after that, but I wasn't listening anymore. And so it continues. Greetings, my name's Neosekken, and welcome back to my Let's Play of Chaos Head Noah. So, Norose, how do you wish to die? Do you want to get Senkreen off the roof of one of the tallest buildings in Shibuya? You want to get vivisected and have something wholly unpleasant and foreign shoved into your innards? Maybe you want to have all the blood drained from your body? Get impaled on a wall by dozens of spikes? I mean, hey, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. I mean, you definitely strike me as the sort of man who believes in that kind of philosophy, or probably would if you felt someone seriously did you wrong on a personal level. And let's be real here, I think you've done a shit ton of people all throughout Shibuya seriously wrong throughout the past few weeks, years even. Especially in the past 24 hours. I mean, the city's in ruins. Thanks to you. You and your friends, that is, but you are definitely the ringleader, for sure, so I'd say most of the blood is on your hands. So unless the higher powers that be wants to protect your butt from my hands pummeling on it, you're not getting out of this, as far as I'm concerned. One way or the other, you're going down. And I'm gonna be laughing and laughing and laughing and dancing on your grave the second I confirm your pulses have ceased. A single colossal device held the attention of two men. Inohana Kozu, a member of the House of Representatives, and Kuramochi Yudai, the founder of the Cosmic Church of the Divine Light. Oh boy, we get to have some spectators for your epic beatdown. An ominous hum continually sounded from the device. From Noah, too, beckoning a nod of satisfaction from the both of them.
5000人を殺すと言い出した時はどうなることかと思ったが。
調整には随分と骨が折れたよ。特に300人委員会に感づかれないようにするのはね。
ご協力に感謝します。
Norose gave a very slight bow.
だがこれが完成した今、5000人などちっぽけな数字でしかなくなった。
早くも影響が目に見えて出てきているよ。人々の家畜化が始まっている。
これでいよいよ我らが世界を手に入れる日も現実のものとなったわけだ。
Inohana and Kuramochi looked to one another, exchanging sinister smirks. Now, if I were a diabolical mastermind like Norose, this would be the part where I'd be like, oh, I'm sorry, gentlemen. You honestly believe that I was going to share this power with you? Oh, no. My corporation was the one that helped build this contraption right behind me. So, as far as I'm concerned, I'm gonna be king. You are gonna basically be my footstools. Like, come on, look at this. Look at the man right in the center of the screen and tell me that he doesn't strike you as the sort of man who would backstab his allies if it somehow benefited him in the long run. He definitely strikes me as the sort of man who is well, a backstabber. Norose, meanwhile, simply gazed at them, his face not even so much as twitching.
しかしノロセよ。貴様、なかなか興味深い趣味を持っているようじゃないか。
何のことでしょう。
Inohana smiled crudely, then gestured with his head toward the tableau erected near Noah 2.
なんとも芸術性にあふれるオブジェだ。ぜひわしにも一つ用意してもらいたいものだな。
素材ならば我が教団の信者の中からえりすぐりを提供してもよい。
倉持先生は気前がいい。
あれは餌ですよ。
餌？
ノア2をより完璧なものにするための。
Let me guess. Rimi is strapped to this tableau, you say. Or I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but whatever. I'm sure Rimi is attached to it, right? She's the bait.
まあ、そういうことにしておこう。
それよりノア2が具体的にどれほどのことができるのか実演してもらいたいところだね。
What, third melt wasn't enough of a demonstration for you? Even though you were just saying just a second ago how its influence was evident at this point?
それはいい。早速やってみせたまえ。
Norose lightly shrugged his shoulders, his impressive facial expression remaining ever present.
ではこのようなものはどうですか？
By the time his words reached their conclusion, the demonstration had already begun. In the blink of an eye, Inohana and Kuramochi came to realize that they were both holding handguns. Neither Noah 2 nor Norose had made a single movement, and yet, this miraculous happening had become undeniable reality.
本物そっくりだ。
まるで手品のようだよ。
手品と一緒にしてもらっては困ります。その銃の存在は現実。
Their eyes fixated on the handguns within their grasps. Inohana and Kuramochi nodded in satisfaction for a second time.
実に素晴らしい。
いかにも神をも超越する力だ。
この銃は記念にもらっておくとするか。
小物ですね。
To the other two men present in the room, Norose's faint whisper was inaudible.
早速今後の計画を検討しよ
う。まずは300人委員会の排除。
ノロセ、ご苦労だったな。
今後のことは追って連絡する。
The two were thoroughly pleased with themselves and the project, and moved to leave the premises with buoyant steps. And yet, their backs are turned, so backstabbing time?
その必要はありません。
何？
どういうことだ？
Norose's expression found itself changing for the first time. Yep, backstabbing time. I read you right. That smile tells me everything I need to know. He narrowed his eyes, slightly raised his jaw, and stared at them from where he stood. His attitude was one of intense scorn, as if he were fiercely looking down on them. No. In truth, he was looking down on them.
計画は私が引き継ぎましょう。ただし、あなた方の考えているような低俗な目的ではなく。 より崇高な理由のためにです。
Define noble. Norose's tone remained civil and polite. Beginning to understand what exactly he was conveying, the two men naturally became infuriated.
貴様、裏切るのか？
神にでもなったつもりかね。
300人委員会が黙ってはおらんぞ。
お二人も300人委員会のメンバーでありながら反旗を翻そうとしていたではありませんか。
Yeah, I was about to say. Norose's eyes watched them carefully, and housed within them was raw, unending contempt. His gaze was cold as could be. It was as if he was being forced to study two monoliths of pure rot and filth. His gaze conveyed a very particular meaning, one that revealed he had only been using these two from the very start.
これはすべて予定通りの行動ですよ。あなた方がここで死ぬことも含めて。
ふざけるな！
ざれ事を。
Kuramochi and Inohana aimed their guns at Norose. They moved to pull the triggers. So what's going to happen? Are the bullets going to be stopped in the middle of the chambers, and it'll cause the guns to backfire, and send the chambers of the guns flying into their heads or something?
ざれ事ではなく。
The two guns fired simultaneously. Their roars echoed within the dome.
予知だったのですが。
And yet, it was not Norose who had fallen, but Inohana and Kuramochi. For some unfathomable reason, they had taken their sights off of Norose right before pulling the triggers, and shot each other instead. Messed with their brains and perceptions using the dead spots in their eyes, I assume. Their deaths had been instant. The two compatriots then collapsed. They had put holes into each other's heads, and now they were nothing more than lumps of meat who would never draw breath again.
ノア2は我が手にあります。特物にはその意味がお分かりにはならなかったようだ。
Norose's demonstration had been about more than simply showing off guns. Its purpose had been to make the two men mistake each other for Norose, and take their own lives in the process. Yeah, I called that too. You definitely messed with their perceptions. That was the real demonstration. And with the power of Noah 2, it had been beyond trivial to perform. Next, Norose turned toward his tableau. Affixed there was the figure of Sakihara Rimi. She had begged Norose to let Nanami go, and thus she had been taken hostage in her place. Due possibly to the mental attacks by Nanami, Rimi's energy had long since faded, leaving her head pointed toward the ground as she hung affixed. Yet, when Norose strode toward her, her shoulders ever so slightly trembled.
自分の手を汚さずに卑怯なことばっかり。あなたこそ俗物だよ。
The back of Norose's hand struck her cheek. Following this, he grabbed Rimi by the jaw and forced her to look at him. Even though nearly all her life had left her expression, even as she desperately fought to keep her eyes open, her glare flared with an ardent blaze directed solely at Norose.
なぜ西条匠に助けを求めないのです？
Norose whispered close to her ear.
彼を巻き込まないで。
どちらの彼のことを言っているのですか？
二人とも。
私としてはどちらか一人で十分ですがね。IR2 を生み出したものとその完全なるコピー。二人とも化け物じみた力を持っている。彼らどちらかのコードサンプルが手に入ればノア2はより完璧へと近づくでしょう。神をも超える力を得るのです。
Rimi lowered her eyes in anguish. He fiercely tore away the hand that had been holding her jaw, and as his gaze rose up to Noah too, a smile formed from the corners of his mouth.
さあ、呼びかけなさい。どちらでもいい。私は歓迎しますよ。
Rather, that was exactly what he had been waiting for. After surmounting all of Norose's trials, devised specifically for him, Nishijo Takumi would arrive in this very location. So we're just heading straight forward into a trap, through and through. But at this point, what choice do we have? So, fingers crossed, and hopefully everything will work out for us. As I made my way through the dark tunnel, I relied on the red glow of my D-sword to see. My steps naturally became quicker and quicker. I'd never walked on subway tracks at all before. As certain as I was that no trains were coming, the mere possibility had me tense enough that I couldn't keep my head from frantically whipping back and forth. It was a minute-long train ride between Shibuya Station and Shinsen Station. The distance between should have been less than a kilometer. Luckily for me, the tunnel in the Inokashira line didn't have too many cave-ins, so making it to Shibuya Station shouldn't have been the worst thing ever. But something was still weighing on me. Kosubi had warned me about something before we parted ways.
たくさんのグモグモドロドロっていう意識がね、待ち構えてるのら。コズピー、力になれないけど。
Well, don't worry about it. I'm a one-man army. I can handle myself just fine.
気をつけてね、たくみさん。
I mean, they're just a bunch. What would I be dealing with? Just a bunch of porters in otaku shirts. Hardly anything to really worry about. Oopy goopy, ploopy head consciousnesses. Right. At the very least, I imagined I wasn't going to like those. I was starting to have second thoughts. Fear crept up on me, and I started to feel incredibly alone. Making my way through a pitch-black tunnel all by myself. A tunnel in which something horrifying was apparently waiting for me. How could I not lose my nerve? Whispers in the back of my mind urged me to leave the tunnel this instant, to find a way to Shibuya Station on the surface. But I didn't have that kind of time to lose. So, in order to destroy any remaining fear I had, I thought of Rimi's smiling face. I thrusted my D-sword forward to illuminate the tunnel ahead of me. Problem was, its red glow only made my feelings of anxiety and foreboding even worse. Suddenly, something felt off. I felt like I caught a glimpse of something strange. Strange enough to make my gaze dart all around and to try and find it. 10 meters ahead of me on the track, a small shadow was jutting out. one that hadn't been there a second ago. I squinted. Actually, it wasn't a shadow at all. Standing at about 20 centimeters tall, it was a Saratan figure. Well, this is ominous. Strike her down before she does something to you. What the? Why would that be in a place like this? I was hit with a sense of whiplash. It was way too out of place. I was in a dim underground tunnel, one for tracks that took people between stations. The general public didn't tend to go into the tunnels themselves, especially this deep. I was right in the center of them. And yet, the figure was there anyway. And it was the post-awakening version too, my absolute favorite. Though her chest was pretty busted up. Wait a second. Is this the figure you lost during that scuffle in Scramble Crossing? Was that my figure? The one I dropped during the chaos at Scramble Crossing yesterday? If it was, then how the hell she ended up here? That's a good question. Strike her down anyway. I don't like her. She was standing perfectly upright, too, with that bewitching smile of hers aimed straight at me.
なんでセイラが
タッキーにはそう見えてるんだ
I heard a voice. The voice I always deluded was talking inside my head. Sarah's voice.
なんでもいいけどさ
Alright, there's gotta be a porter nearby. They're already trying to work their magic on me. I'm under the influence of some kind of mental attack. Where are you? Show yourself so I can mess you up. It happened in less than a second. Faster than I could even blink. Saratan, who should have just been a small figure, had instantly transformed into a life-sized model. Well, hey, at least on the plus side, we now have a life-size face to punch. Then, her smooth, silky, sexy body began to bend and twist just like a real person's. Her hair rustled around, and her huge tits jiggled. Was this a delusion? More like a nightmare.
ねえタッキー遊ぼうよ
The only game I want to play with you is a life-risking one, where I will always come out the winner. If you're not gonna play that with me, then frankly, do us both a favor and get out of here. Skadoosh. Vanish. I heard another voice behind me. Oh god, she's multiplying! Whipping my head around in shock, I saw another life-size Saratan standing there.
リミッチのことなんてほっといてさ
But it didn't end there. To my left, and to my right, the amount of Saratans were slowly multiplying. They cascaded out from the darkness. Just the sight alone sent a slight chill down my spine. The number of Saratans had to have been at least in the triple digits now. Oh, hell.
私と気持ちいいことしよう
100 Saratans crowded around me and spoke in unison.
一緒ボケなす
Uh-oh, she's attacking us! Takumi, behead her! Quick! Laughing gleefully, one of the Saratans in front of me charged at me. Then, her slender arms swung her colossal metal bat. The impact was definitely real. My D-sword managed to take the brunt of the blow. It'd been way too heavy of a strike. My hands started spasming before going numb. It all hurt like hell. That was when I realized it was all really happening. It wasn't just some delusion. It was reality. They were real booted beings. And every single one of them was out for blood.
遊んでくれないとぶっ飛ばしちゃうぞ。
Not if I blow you first!
僕の嫁なら道を開けて。
やだ。
それなら
I have to brute force my way through. I retightened my grip on my D-sword. The fiery emblem on my D-sword's hilt began to burn. Even more red light began to emanate from the blade. I slashed the sword, tearing right through my waifu. The blade was weightless. Smooth in how it handled, I drew whatever trajectory I wished it to. The blade bit into her shoulder before running through her body in its entirety. There had not been a shred of resistance when it came to rending her flesh and bones. It had hardly taken any strength from me at all. Sarah's glamorous body split in half at an angle. As her entrails piled out, she collapsed on the spot. Even her organs had been perfectly reproduced. They glittered and shone with a pink gleam. I averted my eyes.
ごめん、セラ。
I'm not. You've been nothing but a colossal pain in my ass ever since I've known you. I was gutting my favorite character with my own two hands. As an otaku, this was the hardest thing I'd ever had to do. You'll be over it by the end of the day. But still, I couldn't give up here.
強い強い。さすがタッキー。そんなタッキーが好き。もっと気持ちよくして。遊ぼうよ。
You heard the ladies. They want to play more, so by all means, slice and dice, Takumi.
めちゃくちゃにしてあげる。楽しい楽しい。
Suddenly, each and every one of the Sarahs started speaking independently of one another. The flood of voices threatened to swallow me whole. I had to quit thinking of them as Sarah. That was what I had to tell myself. And so, in order to keep moving forward, I swung at my sword at the Sarahs blocking my path.
どいてよ。
Rending the darkness, with a single horizontal strike, a red beam blazed across the tunnel. The four Saratans standing next to each other instantly turned into corpses. Another one grabbed me from behind. She wrapped her arms around my neck in a chokehold. Her large, supple boobs pressed against my back. Another Sarah tried to mount my leg, and I quickly punctured her in the face with my D-sword. Well, it's not a punch, but I'll definitely take it. At least it's to the face. A cleanly cut molten hole formed where her smile had used to be. It was hard to breathe. My neck was being constricted. I was on the verge of suffocating.
浮気しちゃダメ。
Another metal bat was coming right at me. I managed to writhe around enough to change positions, and now my back was facing it. I felt Sarah's body shudder, and her grip on my neck weakened.
リミッチのことなんて忘れて。
No, I'm not. I shook her off my back. Then, I whipped around and swiped with my D-sword. Three pairs of Saratan's legs came at me. My next strike would sever them at the thighs. No game of footsies for you, milady! The three of them plunged into the ground in perfect harmony. I stepped on the top of their backs. Sarah started winding up her metal bat, and I swung my D-sword down on her. Her metal bat met with my D-sword, only for me to carve straight through it, and straight through the top of her head. No, my D-sword wasn't carving things. More than that, it would have been more accurate to say it evaporated anything that crossed with its trajectory. No matter how soft the object, no matter how solid the object, no matter how cold the object, no matter how hot the object, my blade instantaneously boiled and burned away anything it came into contact with, severing it from its source. These anime characters, who all had the same face, who were all calling my name in unison, who continued to attack me just for the sake of it, made my hair stand on end. To try and rile myself up, I let out a huge scream. Then, aiming for the Saratan right in front of me, I plunged my sword straight into her chest. Sarah grabbed onto my D-sword. In almost that exact same second, her hands evaporated. Ignore her words. I lost all words. Dread began to climb up from the depths of my body. Chills ran down my back. My entire body stiffened. This wasn't Sarah. Sarah would never have turned against me.
That is a fucking lie, and you know it, Takumi. She has turned against us more times than I can even be bothered to count.
She's been especially unhelpful ever since we dealt with Suwa right at the 107 building. You deserve that kick to the groin, the face, or wherever she ended up kicking you. Just for believing that delusion, if nothing else. The delusion that she would never betray you. Like, no, I'm sorry, you deserve to get hurt for if you honestly believe that. I heard the sound of several of my ribs being pulverized. I even felt the bones in my right cheek, my right arm creak, letting out a dull sound as they did. The blow resounded within my body. And then, the sheer impact sent me flying. I smashed into a wall. My head collided directly with it. Oof. My vision warped and wavered. She rapidly swung her metal bat down on top of me. I was getting bludgeoned. My left arm was minced from the elbow down. Even the concrete in the wall was dented from the blow. Another metal bat swung straight into my leg. All strength left my right hand. The slightest movement caused a severe pain to scream out in my brain. But I ignored it, and I swung my D-sword. I cleanly severed the oncoming metal bat, but the pain of doing so forced a groan from my mouth. I came within arm's reach of the Sarah in front of me, impaled her torso with my D-sword, and tore my way through her. Her blood spattered my hands. Despite being just an anime character, her blood was incredibly warm. My mind went numb. Pain was all that ruled me now. I wanted to lock it all away, but I couldn't. As long as this pain endured, I would never be able to. Copious amounts of clotted blood gushed out of my flattened left hand. And it wasn't easy trying to hold on to the D-sword in my right either. The pain seemed to reverberate from my very bones. Pain so bad, I felt like I was about to pass out. I realized my entire body was soaked with sweat. The droplets stung at my eyes. My vision was hazy. More and more Sarahs approached from in front of me. The sound of their cheerful laughter reverberated deep within my ears, making my very eardrums vibrate. With my injuries, I doubted I'd lived for more than a few hours. That thought had suddenly come to me. But it didn't really matter. I was just a delusion anyway. A being that would blink out of existence just as quickly as it had blinked in. In the grand scheme of things, my injuries didn't really matter. I just needed to save Rimi. I just needed to destroy Noah too. If this body could grant that, then I'd gladly give it all away. So, her Malbat came down on me again. I figured I'd be able to avoid it, but the fatigue and pain slowed my reaction considerably. I was struck right in the temple. I could feel its enormous spikes tearing into my skull. The world shook. My vision went black. All things became even darker than they already had been, and I could no longer see anything at all. I tumbled over. And as I tumbled, my mind went to my right hand. It was exploding with pain, but I was able to reaffirm that my D-sword was still there. I swung out my flattened left hand in an attempt to regain my footing. An exposed bone collided with the ground. Oof. An impact akin to an electric shock ran through my entire body, causing me to black out for a second. But I regained consciousness soon after. My vision came back. I started to raise back up. The soles of my feet caught hold of the ground. Using the centrifugal force I'd been blown away with, I charged into the horde of Seiras and swung my right hand. My bones creaked. Freshly spilled blood burst out from the Seiras. The stench of blood refused to leave my nostrils. Was it my blood? Sarah's blood? Who even knew? It all blended together. All I knew is that I was covered in blood, and that the coat of red staining me had made my vision go blurry. I kept on carving into them. Who even knew just how many I'd cut down at that point? When would it end? Probably by the time you find the porter who's creating this delusion. In my mind, it was as if she was multiplying infinitely. Sarah clung to my right hand. I swung both her and my D-sword around. But she wouldn't let go. Instead, she bent my arm backward in a way that wasn't meant to go. My joint came out of its socket. All strength left my arm. My D-sword hit the ground. Oh, great. Nausea welled up in my stomach. I coughed and sputtered violently. The taste of blood spread through my mouth. I was pretty sure my shattered ribs were puncturing my internal organs. Any and every kind of pain was eating away at my body. I felt like I was going to go insane. But I was holding out hope. I couldn't help but hold out hope. I wanted to be set free, but I knew very well how impossible that was. So my hope was more than wishful thinking than anything.
汗拭いてあげよっか。
With a big grin on her face, Sarah peered at my face, and I drove my foot into her jaw as hard as I could. Attaboy, keep fighting till the bitter end! I forcibly channeled more strength into my right arm. All sensation in it was going numb. It felt as if my nerves were burning to a crisp. My entire body was boiling. And now, the pain in my bones was rippling not just through my arm, but through my entire body. I was on the verge of shattering to pieces. Then I heard something that sounded like the growl of a beast. For a moment, I wondered whose voice it was, only to realize it was my own. The fingers on my right hand faintly shifted. I grabbed my D-sword and conjured a delusion. I pictured it being bound by a cord, and it instantly became real. The sword was secured to my hand with the cord. I needed to move. I needed to get to where Rimi was, beyond this darkness.
タッキー、どうして私と一緒にいてくれないの？
Because you're thoroughly unpleasant and I don't like you. I sputtered out the blood that had gathered in my mouth. Spit it in her face! I was surrounded by heaps of Seira corpses lying on the ground. Other Seiras kicked past them on their way to me, producing ripples in the puddles of blood. I slowly shook my head.
だって、セーラは
I gritted my teeth.
アニメじゃないか。
The very next second, every single Seira morphed into 2D. The ones who were standing became life-sized cardboard cutouts. The corpses lying on the ground became covers for body pillows. Ha! They had all returned home, back to the realm of 2D. Not a single one of them had moved anymore.
チリはチリに帰らなきゃ。
Suffer in 2 dimensions, you traitorous little bitch.
僕も後で行くよ。
Must we? Can't we please just leave her be in the land of 2D and just, I don't know, stare at Rimi for the rest of eternity or something? I mean, she's got pink hair, and she's genuinely a lot more pleasant than Sarah Tan ever was. Who needs Sarah? You got Rimi. In something of a moment of silence for the girls, I briefly hung my head over the wreckage. In the back of my mind, I was thinking that the gory, blood-stained Sarah body pillow covers definitely wouldn't sell well. I was on the brink of passing out, but I managed to stave it off by biting my lip hard. And then, I started walking through the dark tunnel once again. Great! Now we're gonna go all the way to all the way into this trap, beaten up, bloodied, and bruised. Let's just give Norose every advantage he could ask for at this point. I ended up at the dilapidated building near Shibuya Station's east entrance. The surrounding scenery was dotted with partly or entirely collapsed buildings, leaving the building here as the sole intact survivor. On it was the dome of a rooftop planetarium that had closed down some years back. We're here. Wheezing my lungs out, I ascended the deserted stairway to the top floor. I made my way through the unattended lobby into the planetarium before I took a breather at the gargantuan device that had jumped into my sight. It was Noah 2 in all its majesty, surrounded by the chilly air, robbing me of my warmth. A piece of art stood beside Noah 2.
Rimi.
How dare you? Rimi is not art. Rimi, affixed to the art piece, slowly raised her head at my voice. Our eyes met. Her eyes shot open.
Kimiを助けに
Her eyes began to swim. Takes one to know one. It's not like you weren't already charging headfirst into danger yourself before I was. She shook her head sadly.
そんなキスだらけになってそんな無茶して待っててって言ったのになんで
Forgive me, Rimi, but you don't really look like you're in any position to free yourself without any outside help, so I'd be waiting an awfully long time for you to come back. Because I've fallen in love with you. I'm in love with you, Rimi. Aww. But I couldn't say that out loud. I couldn't say anything heroic like, I'm here to save you because I'm in love with you. Not of how I was. Not of me covered in blood and a completely flattened arm. Well, that and we got some business to take care of here with this big dumb machine here and the man that's trying to play God with it. So, until we take care of those two, there won't be any sitting in the trees kissing for a little while yet. My current state was far from Prince Charming as humanly possible. I said, if I said something like that now, I'd probably look creepy as hell. That put me closer to a stalker than anything, really. You're worried about coming off as a stalker now at a time like this? If I spilled my guts to her in some speech that didn't let her get a word in, it would have just put her way off. Get your head in the game, man. This isn't the time to be worrying about impressing her. She was going to live. And I was going to die. Having some dead man walking conveys all his feelings on a whim would have left a horrible taste in her mouth. So, I balled it all in.
意味にこれを返したくて
My right hand was still weak. It was the hand I'd been using to hold my D-sword. Desperately forcing my fingers to move, I reached inside my jacket pocket and pulled out a handkerchief. It was colored a gentle vermilion. Whether that was its original hue, or due to my blood staining it, I didn't know. Rimi had given it to me. Though its floral aroma had long since expired, The handkerchief was one of several precious memories she'd given me.
僕は君をここから助け出してノア2を壊してこのハンカチを返すんだ。
That was all I was capable of doing. And if I managed to achieve it all, I could die with no regrets. Besides, there wasn't much else I could do. In my mind, every sense of mine had gone numb a long time ago. I imagined that the reason for that was because the pain was so severe, my brain had no choice but to start blocking sensations transmitted by whatever nerves were responsible. I could barely move. My arm continued to bleed. My vision was blurry. I was incredibly cold. I had a feeling that if I wasn't careful, I'd lose consciousness right then and there.
Kimi wa jitsu ni yukan desu ne.
A towering man emerged from behind Noah 2. Norose Genichi. Facing me, he clapped sarcastically with no clear expression on his face.
しかし、致命的なことが一つあります。行動原理が感情に根ざしているということです。それは野蛮人のすることだ。
I'll take plain old barbarism over your psychopathic logic and rationality any day of the week. Barbarism is just more fun. I had no idea what he was getting at. It took everything I had just to bear with the pain, so aside from Rimi, I didn't have any brain power left to try and comprehend what anyone was saying.
小を犠牲にして大の利益を守る。それを悪だと思いますか？私はそうは思いません。このままでは人類はいずれ滅び去る。人の欲望によってです。あまりにも醜い心、あまりに利己的な欲望の洪水。人の社会はすでに破綻し、腐り落ちようとしています。誰もが己のことしか考えず、その結果殺し合い、奪い合っています。
Each person thinks only of themselves, says the man who is trying to literally usurp the role of God. Like, I'm sorry, but this speech that you're giving me so far is ringing awfully hollow and hypocritical coming from a man like you. I mean, you're putting your own selfish desires above the needs of literally the rest of humanity. You're a hypocrite, my friend. I'm sorry, but you just are.
君もギガロマニアックスとして覚醒したのなら見たはずですよ。人の心の本質を。
Yeah, I did. It's not exactly surprising.
私は幼い頃に覚醒したため、もう何十年という間、それを見てきた。
So you are a gigalomaniac. So that contraption that you have Rimi in, is that your D-sword?
300人委員会は人類の自滅を阻止するためという大義名分のもと、世界人間牧場計画を推し進めてきました。けれどそれも所詮、彼らのエゴを満たすものでしかない。私が目指すのはそんなものではありません。
Only your ego and your ego alone being stroked, am I right?
悟ったのですよ。この腐った世界を再生するためには、社会のシステムを変えるのではなく、
It is reality itself, yes?
世界中すべての人間の心を変える必要があるのだと。
Okay, I guess not quite.
そのための プロジェクトノアです。ノア2があれば世界中すべての人間から負の妄想を消し去り、清廉な心へと漂白できます。争いは消え、世界に永遠の平和を与えることができます。
Their negative emotions will be their negative emotions will be bleached clean, and conflict will be no more. Then what do you call that freaking mess? That freaking mess at Scramble Crossing that you force everyone to partake in, along with everything else that preceded it. Reeks nothing but conflict to me personally.
君も誰かに蔑まれることもなくなるでしょう。
What guarantee can you really give that shit like that won't freaking happen anymore if you assume complete control of all of humanity? I mean, if you're the only person within the entire globe, within the whole freaking world, who has his mental faculties completely intact, while everybody else is just basically giant walking meat puppets that will act according to your whims, who's to say that one day you're not just going to be so goddamn bored out of your mind that you're just going to have an entire continent worth of people just kill themselves in an orgy of violence just to satiate your boredom or something? Can you really guarantee me that something like that wouldn't happen? Finally, his novel-length monologue came to a close. My body was on the verge of collapse, but I desperately planted my feet. I'd at least gotten a bit of a break. That was the only reason I was still standing.
あんたの言ってることはもしかしたら正しいかもしれない。
I hadn't really been paying much attention. But in regards to the future of humanity, he was definitely right. His ideals were entirely righteous. Not that it really matters much, given the means behind his crusade. His methods are anything but righteous. Like, seriously, just ask the new gen victims. I'm sure they don't feel what happened to them was righteous in any capacity. He was the president of a sprawling corporation, and his eye was aimed solely on the justice for the whole of mankind. Me, meanwhile, I was a monster. A virgin, an otaku freak, a selfish, ego-driven wannabe who just wanted to save some girl he liked and to give a shit about anyone else. Normally that'd make me the bad guy through and through. The monster would then be slain, and justice would prevail. Some of history's greatest monsters are those who acted for the benefit of the greater good, Takumi, and gave themselves approval to commit all manner of atrocities by their own consciences. It's not quite as black and white as you're painting it, is all I'm saying.
でも僕はあんたには負けられない。
なぜ否定するのです？
ただの自己満足だ。
残念です。
His gaze locked onto me. Norose grabbed Rimi by the collar and threw her off the art piece. His right hand then stretched out in front of it. And in that ephemeral moment, the once standing art piece found itself in Norose's hand. It was no mere art piece, nor was it a cross that existed for crucifixion. It was a D-sword. It was far too monstrous to be called a sword. Savagery. Galetity. That which sowed terror. A contaminated gospel. Chaos, thoroughly complexified. A blasphemy with which to desecrate. The purest of evils. Akin to the very gates of hell themselves, the hearts of those who gazed upon it would be wrenched away, luring them into an eternal eon of strife. All that was negative in this world converged into one, embodying its very shape. And a man like this, who wields a sword like this, wants me to seriously believe that he has humanity's best intentions at heart. That self-aggrandizing justification speech that he gave is nothing more than just a freaking novel-length bag of hot air. You actually want me to take your claim seriously? Really? Really? I gulped back all the saliva that had been built up in my throat. Despite everything, I made up my mind. I fixed my grip on my D-sword, which was still bound in my hand with the cord. And then, I took a single step toward Noah 2. Or more accurately speaking, I began to close the distance between Norose and myself. Speaking of distance, he had an overwhelming advantage in range over me.
剣で切り合うような野蛮な行為はあまり得意ではないのですがね。しかし、君からコードサンプルを手に入れる必要があります。そのために無力化しなければね。
Towering over me, with one hand, Norose swung a D-sword even bigger than he was. His strike was so heavy, it felt as if it could have pulverized any known object out there. My arm was so slow to respond. Even moving it slightly made pain explode throughout it. Even still, I forced it to do so, and raised my arm. I caught the blow with my D-sword. Any normal sword would have been split right in two. And that wasn't even accounting for how unbelievably thin my sword was. It couldn't have been more different from Norose's. And yet, my D-sword didn't break. Somehow, I managed to parry Norose's first strike. My hand went numb. With my left hand pulverized, my balance on that side was non-existent. The stance I'd been holding collapsed. By the looks of it, he was about to send me flying. I just had to endure it. I connected with Norose's second blow. His recovery between strikes was way too fast. Don't be misled by how his sword looks. That was what I told myself. It was a battle of strength, between a sword that was far too thin and delicate, and a sword that was far too colossal and ferocious. Somehow, I was holding out with it, at least for the moment. 4 times now. 4 times had our blades crossed, but this time, the position of Norose's hands began to change. It looked he was clutching the guard of the sword now. And then his sword began to writhe. Laying out an eerie noise, its malleable mechanisms groaned. The blade's edge then split in two, opening into a pair of scissors that was then thrust toward my very chest.
Huh?
That alteration, right then I came to realize, it would mean the end of me. I countered, swinging my sword right down in front of me. But I was too late. forked point sank straight into my chest. A callous smile formed on Norose's lips. He loosened his grasp on the guard, and the colossal scissors snapped shut. My chest, my ribs, and my lungs were all devoured. I desperately stumbled back. And right when I did that, Norose swept his arms straight across. My own fresh blood danced before my eyes. Pain spiked throughout my entire body. Even though my senses were supposed to have been numbed, I was on the verge of screaming out with whatever remained of my lungs. But even so, I clenched my teeth and endured it. My chest had been thoroughly minced. If not for stepping back when I did, he would have hit my heart. Massive quantities of blood continued to spray out. I nearly toppled over, but I caught myself at the last second. I can't die here. I didn't come this far just to die. I ignored Norose. Instead of him, I approached Noah 2 and Rimi, the latter of which was collapsed on the ground. It took every fiber of my being, but I did it all the same. Raising her head from the ground, Rimi looked in my direction. She was likely exhausted. There was no way her body had any strength left. As fatigue, or maybe just my injuries, continued to wear me down, my vision grew blurrier. I wasn't sure what sort of face Rimi was making as she looked at me. I didn't meet her gaze. I couldn't bear for her to see me like this, bloody and beaten to a pulp. That was the sole, minuscule bit of pride I had left. Even on my deathbed, that was where I drew the line. I advanced toward Noah 2. My D-sword was already within range. Oddly enough, Norose stayed behind me, ignoring that I was leaving him behind. I sincerely doubt that. That noise. That's the same noise I'd hear throughout some of the phone calls I got. You may pass. Where shall this narrow path take us to? It is the path to Tenjin Shrine. All of a sudden, a cheery melody began to ring throughout the dome. You may pass. Noah 2 towered over me. The sound emanating from it became even more shrill. Deep within all its majesty, I sensed something incredibly strange and enigmatic moving around. For a split second, I flinched. Albeit slowly, I managed to take a stance with the blade at my hip. I aimed toward Noah 2's nearly organic-looking, tube-covered exterior, and bulldozed it with my D-sword. That was when I noticed. At some point or another, Noah 2 had vanished from my sight. And now, somehow, I was standing with my back to it. No, I see. Norose, get out of my head! I knew for a fact that I'd just been trying to destroy it. There wasn't a single damn reason for me to have turned around. And yet, that was the direction I was facing. In the very center of my blurred vision, Norose was the one standing there, not Noah 2. I turned myself around, swinging my D-sword at it for the second time. Except, even though I'd fully intended to turn around, I hadn't. I had the will to turn myself around. I'd even made the motion to do so. And yet, the end result was one where I hadn't actually turned around. I was hit with a wave of utter confusion.
Noah 2の自己防衛機能とでも言うべきものです。
Nerose's quiet voice resounded from within the dome, pulling and mixing together with the melody of You May Pass.
近づく者の心に干渉し、意志を歪ませる。ノア2には誰も近寄れません。私以外。
Okay then. Then I guess I'll find a way to trick you into attacking Noah 2 for me. Shouldn't be impossible. If I think this through hard enough. When he finished speaking, he leisurely walked closer to me. Then, as if it was the easiest thing in the world, he raised the colossal D-sword above his head. I clenched my teeth. I'd lost a lot of blood. I couldn't think clearly. Even though I didn't have the slightest bit of sensation in my right hand. I shoved the pain and the fact I couldn't move it properly aside, and lifted it up in a desperate attempt to deflect the next blow. And then, the D-sword that had somehow still remained attached to my hand with the cord was sent flying by a staggering impact. It tumbled across the floor, far, far away from me. It was astonishing seeing it off. Fixing my gaze back in front of me, I was met with Norose's sneering figure. And then, as if in warning, as if to urge my mind forward, the melody changed.
君の存在を否定してあげましょう。
Nerose's stance told me he was already prepared to strike again. He was about to bring that sword crashing down on me. It was all too overwhelming, all too devastating, all too brutal. That was his D-sword. And it was coming down on me while I was completely unarmed. I had no way of stopping his strike. I was a sitting duck. Rimi forced her way between Norose and me. Her soft touch enveloped my face. He's not gonna stop! Get out of the way! I felt Rimi's chest. She had wrapped her arms around me, almost like a tender embrace. She was protecting me from Norose. You're actually stopping. Not that I'm complaining, I'm just wondering why. Norose sighed quietly, lowering his sword. Rimi had saved me once again, even though I told her I was here to save her. How fucking pathetic was that? Pretty pathetic, but hey, maybe we'll find a way to turn things around. Just wait for an opportunity. Hit with a wave of intense frustration, I slithered my right hand onto her body and thrusted it inside her blouse. I felt the sensation of the coarse, warm underwear lying atop her skin. What are you doing? Then, I felt the pain of the gashes in my chest. Then the pain of my amputated left hand. Then the pain of my dislocated right arm. Then the pain of my dysfunctional lungs as I struggled to breathe. Oh crap, the adrenaline's wearing off. But the warmth I felt now, surely it could heal all of it. Rimi's underwear. Rimi's bare skin. Oh, wait a minute. I think I see what he's trying to do here. He's trying to use the sensations of Rimi's body and his power of delusion to maybe heal himself? Is that what he's doing? I tore off the buttons on her blouse. I ripped away the clothing that was keeping her body hidden away from me. I exposed her bra. I grabbed her tightly, right through her bra, reaching her ample breasts. With my blood-smeared right hand, I squeezed her. I rubbed her body with my blood, her bra, her bare skin. I felt its elasticity, such soft, tender skin. Rimi writhed around in an attempt to escape. I grabbed her tightly and didn't let go. I plunged my face into her breasts. Her skin was so velvety, so comfortable. It was as if it was drawing me in. Then, with my free right hand, I began to grope beneath her skirt. How deeply do you have to get into this? Again, assuming I'm reading your intentions correctly here, I mean, good lord. With a gasp, I got off of her. When I realized what I'd been trying to do, I was genuinely shocked. That wasn't intentional? Hey, Norose, did you do something to him? You know, I'd gotten off of her. Rimi tightly clutched her chest and continued to sob sadly. But she'd been protecting me. Why had I done that? Why the hell had I done that? Especially at a time like this. Why was I the one making Rimi cry? Well, I apparently completely misread your intention here. So, your guess is as good as mine.
本当は先畑リミを犯したいんでしょ。
My own voice echoed within my mind. Shocked, I swallowed back my saliva. What was so shocking to me? The fact that he was right? Because he'd seen through me? But who was he to begin with? It was my own voice. My inner voice. My true nature? No, I don't think that's what this is. I'm more inclined to think this is some kind of mental attack by Norose.
ここで物にしておかないと将軍に寝取られちゃうよ。あんなしわくちゃ野郎にリミはやられちゃうんだよ。寝取られるなんて嫌じゃねえ。まあもうすでにやられちゃってる可能性もあるけどさ。
My true nature continued whispering to me. Stop it. Stop saying this shit. I don't believe a single word you're saying. I couldn't cover my ears even if I wanted to, considering my lack of a left hand. Rimi was just lying there sobbing, unable to fix her messy clothes. Just seeing her face like that shattered my heart.
片思いでいいとか綺麗事言ってないでさ。犯しちゃえって。ノロセはそれをする時間ぐらい待ってくれるってよ。どうせ僕はもうすぐ死ぬんだ。 恨まれたってへでもないって。やりたいことやって死のうよ。僕のこのかわいそうな境遇ならここでちょっとひどいことやったってしょうがなかったで許されるよ。
It was just a delusion. Something that was a bad habit of mine. Things could take a turn for the worse if I didn't stop listening. The current would drag me away. My weak-minded nature was luring me to the path of least resistance, toward a really bad path. But I couldn't let it drag me away. Not now.
それにリミは僕に同情してくれてた。それならむしろやらしてくれるべきだ。犯せよ。死ぬ前に童貞捨てようよ。ダメだ!
I screamed, to shatter my weak mind, to blow it straight to hell. Luckily, it seemed to have worked. Rimi had even stopped crying. She lowered her hands covering her face. And then, she glared at me with ice-cold eyes.
つまんない男。
Those few words were all it took for my mind to be swallowed by a cascade of dark emotions. And, as I swung myself at Rimi, with staggering force, an enormous stake burst straight up from the concrete floor. The sharp edge of the stake pierced straight into my crotch. Oh, man. Right in the family jewels. I couldn't comprehend what was going on. My legs were floating in the air. Even if I wanted to run away, I couldn't. The stake gradually tore its way farther and farther into my body. It was excruciatingly painful, but not enough to kill me. The stake continued to grow, lifting me a whole meter into the air. Oh, you're being impaled, Vlad the Impaler style, aren't you? Any form of movement sent a jolt of pain through my groin. I was completely unable to move. Someone, save me. I cast my pleading eyes down toward Rimi, but without even looking at me, she walked straight to Norose's side. Then, as if exhausted of all strength, she crouched to the ground. Both Norose and Rimi simply stared at me, at the mortifying display. Neither of them had any form of expression as they watched. Neither of them had any interest in saving me.
知っていますか？かつて拷問刑として串刺しは世界中のあちこちで用いられていました。この拷問の特徴は死ぬまで3日ほどかかるということです。自らの体重によって徐々にその杭は体に食い込んでいく。ポイントは杭の先端はそれほど尖らせないことです。それにより臓器を傷つけることがなくなり、死ぬまでの期間が延びるわけです。最終的に杭の先端が口や肩から突き破れば処刑は終了。見守っていてあげますよ。3日間。あなたが死ぬまでね。彼女も同じ考えのようですし。
Rimi nodded in response to his words.
もっともその前に胸や腕の傷のせいで失血死に至る方が早いかもしれませんが。
It's a delusion. A delusional attack. That was what I told myself. About damn time you caught on. In reality, I wasn't really impaled. I was still just standing in front of Noah 2. I was only hallucinating. I believed that to be true. I had to believe it. 3 days, 72 hours, 4,320 minutes, 259,200 seconds. If I can endure it for that long, the delusion will end. It has to. Good fucking luck if you honestly try to withstand it that throughout the entire duration. Like, holy shit. If I just sleep for a bit or pass out, it'll go by a lot quicker. Those are my thoughts. No, don't fall asleep, whatever you do. But I couldn't do either of those things. The pain wouldn't let me. And that was exactly what made this such pure, unrelenting torture. I was gonna go insane if this went on. Even though only a moment ago, I've been thinking about trying to endure it. I'd spiraled straight into despair. Considering the extreme amount of time left before my death, despair was the sole emotion that hadn't drained directly out of me. Just kill me already. How much time had passed? I didn't see a clock. I had no clue. I wanted to see a clock. But I knew that if I did see one, the hand sluggishly ticking by would probably shatter my spirit completely. I clenched my teeth. Sweat was oozing off my body in droves. Thanks to that, my throat had gone dry. I moistened it by swallowing the blood that was trickling in. Inside my body, I could feel the stake continuously shoving it aside my internal organs as it wedged itself even deeper into me. I could feel it very clearly. Now, Neo, do not think too deeply about this, whatever you do. Like a countdown to my inevitable death. Soon enough, it arrived at my minced chest. After that, it pierced through my throat, and I'm thinking about it. Fuck. It skewered me straight through the mouth. Your noises aren't helping! The pain and shock was pushing my sanity to its limits. The pain kept me in a 5-minute cycle of passing out, waking up, then passing back out again. I came to understand something. That impalement sucks. Every time I fainted, my body would go limp, and the stake dug into me even faster. Naturally, pain grew to uncomparable levels when that happened. Then it would wake me back up. Unable to move, my body would writhe in torment. Then I'd pass out again to escape the pain, and the gruesome cycle would repeat itself. Even when I was conscious, I was entirely in a daze. It seemed the pain had somehow faded a little too. My vision had gone dim. Was it nighttime? Not that it mattered, considering the lack of windows in the dome. I suppose it was probably because of how much blood I'd lost. Blood trickled from my chest and arms, albeit not a whole lot. If it kept dripping out, maybe I could die peacefully from that instead of being impaled. Realizing that, I attempted to swing around my left arm, hardly any of which remained below the elbow. But it didn't even twitch. No doubt my nerves were already dead. Was it really a delusion? When was it going to end? Would it ever actually end? What had made me believe it was a delusion to begin with? How could I know it was a delusion? What if it was all reality? If I endured it, I'd just die anyway. Enduring it didn't mean shit. But I was enduring it anyway? I was stupid. Only a dumbass would do that. I was an idiot. Die. Not the haha KYS kind. No. Actually fucking die. I should die right now. I was sick of all the pain. I was sick of all the suffering. Bite your tongue off. Do that, and you'll be at peace soon after. Just let me out of here. This is all delusion, right?
死ぬ死ぬ死ぬ死ぬ死ぬ死ぬ痛い死ぬ死ぬ死ぬ死ぬ死ぬ死ぬ死ぬ痛い死ぬ死ぬ
My chest continued to hemorrhage. I couldn't breathe. No matter how much oxygen I tried to suck in, my throat would only make a stupid wheezing sound. I looked down, only to be met with the stake peeking through the holes in my chest. Struggling for oxygen as my mouth flapped open and shut, I violently vomited out blood. The fact that I was about to die brought me peace of mind.
そろそろですね。
It was Norose's voice. The bastard was right in front of me. But I couldn't see him. In fact, I couldn't see a thing. Being impaled had left me in so much agony for so long that I had completely forgotten about both him and Rimi. I couldn't help but wonder if Rimi was still close by, though it didn't really matter. I was too occupied trying to breathe. For a good while now, I've been dedicating every nerve and every last ounce of strength toward doing just that.
君が無事死ぬ前に彼女を始末しておきましょう。
I wasn't exactly sure what he was talking about, nor did I have the chance to think about it.
私を殺すの？
へえ、そういうことです。遺言をどうぞ。
ごめん、タクのこと助けてあげられなかった。
I heard Rimi's final scream, then the sound of someone toppling over. I imagined that Rimi had just been shot and killed. There's no way that's not happening. Otherwise the opening scene that we saw was a lie. I didn't feel a single pang of emotion. Something else took priority. I returned to working on breathing. And then I felt a shock at how I'd done that. What was the meaning in any of this? Why did I struggle so hard to keep on breathing? Wasn't it just too much? Something hot streamed down my cheeks. I was probably crying, but there wasn't any way to be sure of that. I tried my best to endure everything that I had been dealt with so far, but so close to the 3-day limit, the meaning of doing so had been entirely lost. I'm sorry, Rimi. I should be the one to apologize. I couldn't protect you. There wasn't any point in living anymore. I let my body go limp. The weight of that caused my body to sink even deeper. I felt a foreign object working its way up my throat. Breathing became impossible. Something was driving itself up through me. I came back to my senses. Oh, thank God, it's over. The feeling of a foreign object in my throat disappeared. I wasn't impaled anymore. The only blood on me was from my left arm and chest. When did reality end and delusion begin? My brain couldn't begin to process it fast enough. I didn't understand a thing about the situation. In front of me was Norose, D-sword raised.
帰ってきましたか。あなたが体験した3日間は現実では1秒しか経っていませんが。
やっぱり妄想。
I see someone has been taking some notes from a certain ninja-themed manga series when it comes to illusionary perceptions. Although I won't go into any details about that for spoiler reasons for that particular series. After muttering that to myself in relief, Norose's D-sword flashed as fast as lightning. My body's top and bottom halves began to fall out of alignment. My vision fell. It sank downward, even though my legs were still standing right there. Everything above my waist toppled to the floor. My torso had been cleaved clean off. The cross-section was all too beautiful to behold.
Huh?
I inexplicably fixed my gaze on my lower half. It was a reality I didn't want to accept. Or was it just another delusion? If it was, that would have been nice. Please be a delusion. Rimi was calling me, in a voice that seemed so sad. She was calling me.
その状態でも死ぬまで数分は持つはずです。元医師である私が言うのだから確かですよ。その間にコードサンプルを取ることにしましょうか。
I crawled, dragging my body away with my right hand alone. I headed straight for Rimi's voice. I want to feel you there, Rimi. I have to save you. Rimi. I dragged myself forward with my right hand. Then again. Then again. I reached out. But I had no idea where Rimi was. I didn't reach her. I didn't reach anything at all.
しぶとい男だ。
I felt my bones grind to dust. Norose's dress shoe trampled my outstretched right hand.
さすが化け物と言うべきですか。
そのノロセの足が蜃気楼のように揺れた。
Oh?
床のタイルの模様がぼんやりとし始めて、天地が回転する。床と天井が逆になる。僕は天井に這いつくばっている。両断された腰からものすごい勢いで血が噴き出す。全開にした蛇口のように血が体から抜けていく。そのまま腕の傷口を通って内臓までが流れ出る。意識がスーッと遠くなる。でも完全には途切れない。血だまりができて、僕はその深紅の海に身を横たえている。ドクンドクンと鼓動する心臓が僕の目の前に転がっていて、血だまりに波紋を作り、その波紋をぼんやり見ていたら、僕の形が崩れた。人としての形を維持できない。僕と世界との境界が消失する。肉が溶け、骨がゴムのように曲がり、眼球は四角になり、口から裏返った灰がこぼれ出し、神経は数万キロメートルも引っ張られ、脳はシワの一つ一つを丁寧に伸ばされ、体はブヨブヨになる。空気に溶けていく。右手が糸のように伸びてプラネタリウムを出ていく。それは飴細工のように渋谷の空をさまよってコーネリアスタワーにくるくる巻きつく。何度も何度も何度も。別れた足が膨れてる。ブクブクと水風船みたい。パンパンに皮膚が伸びてギチギチ音を立ててる。液状化。肉も骨もとろけてふくらはぎに溜まってる。腰からニョキって小さな頭が生えて、ぎょろりとした白い目が僕を見たよ。そしたら僕の頭がぐしゃって潰された。どっちの頭かはよくわかんない。潰れてトロトロになって、ビルの床、コンクリートの分子の隙間を抜けて落ちていく。地上へビューって地面に作るどろりとした脳みその水たまり。もぞもぞもごもごジュルジュルドロドロプルプルビヨンビヨンビチャビチャぐじゅぐじゅぐちゃりぐちゃり 僕は2つになる。2つが4つになる。4つが8つになる。8つが4つに。2つが8つに。4つが4つに。
This is the single longest instance of someone saying, I have died, I think I've ever witnessed in a piece of fiction, probably ever. Like, holy shit.
どんどん増えて、どんどん減る。僕がいっぱい。僕がいない。僕は何？僕って何？何って僕？僕？何？何区がナボに？ナボになく？お？な。
君は妄想なんかじゃないよ。
レだ。
Are you here to save me, Shogun? Please, I could use some help. Like, holy shit, I'm getting thorough, like, being on the receiving end of a curb stomp doesn't even begin to describe what I've been going through throughout the past, what feels like, 40 minutes to an hour at this point. I mean, I haven't exactly been keeping track of how long this beatdown has been going on exactly, but I mean, well, I came here with the express purpose to beat the shit out of Norose, and Norose was like, no, you're not. And, well, he's beating the shit out of me, and then some. And then some more. And then some more. And then some more, and now look at me. Look at me! Look at the state I'm in!
見てごらん。
西条七海が祈る。兄と共に収容された病院。怪我人があふれた待合室の片隅にうずくまり、実の兄のしわくちゃの手を握りしめて、右手の痛みに耐えて、目を閉じて祈る。もう一人の兄の無事を。楠木優愛が祈る。倒壊したビルの瓦礫。そこに埋もれるように横たわるコンテナの中で、彼の美少女フィギュアの一つを握りしめて、地震と火事で醜く変形してしまったフィギュアたちの姿に感じた胸の痛みに耐え、目を閉じて祈る。彼女を許してくれた少年の無事を。岸本綾瀬が祈る。避難所となっている水明学園。その校舎の屋上で空を見上げて、神話が書かれた文庫本を握りしめて、崩壊した渋谷を覆う不特定多数の妄想が見せる悪意の痛みに耐え、目を閉じて祈る。彼女の歌を、彼女の話を聞いてくれた少年の無事を。折原梢が祈る。新鮮駅の薄暗いホーム。青い瀬名の震える手を握りしめて、足の傷の痛みに耐えて、目を閉じて祈る。 心の声で語り合ったクラスメートの少年の無事を。青い瀬名が祈る。横たわる父の傍らに座り、父の冷たくなった手を握りしめて、最後まで素直になれなかった後悔の痛みに耐えて、目を閉じて祈る。彼女のお願いに不器用ながら答えようとしてくれた少年の無事を、咲畑リミが祈る。冷たい床に横たわりながら彼へ伸ばした自らの手をきつく握りしめて、傷だらけの彼の姿を見て感じた。締め付けられるような胸の痛みに耐えて、目を閉じて祈る。自分が守ろうとした自分を助けに来てくれた少年の無事を。
僕は何もできなかった。君が行動したんだ。その結果としてみんなが君のことを見てきた。君という周囲共通認識はとっくに出来上がっているんだ。これからは、いや、もうすでに君こそが。
僕は、君は誰？僕はその声が聞こえた瞬間に、意識が僕を固定した。ぐちゃぐちゃにかき回されていた世界が一気に収束する。混沌は僕の理想度を形作って収束する。僕は僕としての形に戻る。
Hell yeah! Heroic second win time, baby!
世界は世界としての形に戻る。
Can we now kick him to the curb and curb stomp him for a change? That'd be nice.
僕だ。
I could see clearly now. The rain is gone! All my wounds had healed. My top and bottom halves were connected. I was standing on my own 2 feet. The pain was entirely gone. Serenity filled my heart.
妄想によく打ち勝ったね。僕の最後の力を君に託すよ。
I noticed Rimi at the edge of my vision. She was okay. She was looking at me. Tears were falling down her face. Don't cry. Summoning my strength, I grasped the D-sword's hilt. I ascertained its feeling. My arms worked better than ever. I completely regenerated.
これは実に興味深いですよ。
I agree! But you want to know what I think is going to be even more fascinating? What's going to happen to you within the next 5 to 10 minutes?
この化け物。
I focused my eyes on Norose.
確かに僕は化け物だよ。でもこれが
So I can rescue Rimi. So I can destroy Noah too.
僕が望んだ妄想だ。
Norose's response was swift. He had not yet harvested. He
he had yet to harvest the code sample of Nishijo Takumi. The delusion was supposed to have cornered the boy and shattered his psyche, but now the tables had turned. And that he could not allow. Norose closed the gap between himself and Takumi. Taking a specific angle, he swung his D-sword from below. With a D-sword that could cleave any known object, he diagonally carved through Takumi's chest. The target's durability made no difference, killing a person if it was as simple as slicing through a block of gelatin. With one quick swipe from Norose, Takumi's body was split into pieces. His head, right arm, and right shoulder all slid cleanly off his body. Internal organs littered the floor, but not a single drop of blood fell with them. The lower half of Takumi's body began to give way. He braced himself and managed to plant his feet. In the following moment, the cross-section of his wound began to undulate and squirm. A bubbling noise ensued, and then he regenerated. Even though his body had been cleaved apart a mere second ago, already a new head, right arm, and shoulder had been born. His old head and internal organs remained where they had slid free from him.
通覚は遮断した。
With a single step, Takumi approached Norose. Norose clicked his tongue, then turned over his D-sword.
肉体の形を捨てたがゆえにいかなる形をも取れるということですか。
あんたの見せてくれた妄想のおかげだよ。
He was unable to retain his shape as a human being. He had taken in the delusion and made it his own. This was not regeneration, but replacement. Missing parts replenished, flesh and bone were reproduced once again, all propagating infinitely from the dust within his body. His shape was not fixed. Like an amoeba, like a collection of slime, he could change himself freely. That was the reason Takumi called himself a monster. Takumi took yet another step toward Norose. Norose's frustration increased. Gripping the hilt, he thrust his D-sword at the approaching Takumi. Takumi's head found itself between a colossal pair of scissors.
脳を失えば妄想はできないでしょう。
Takumi's head was crushed. It split like a watermelon. Blood and gray matter burst forth. Everything above the neck was gone. And yet, Takumi's body remained. Regeneration, replacement, was instantaneous. As soon as his heel hit the ground, as if nothing had happened, as if he had been entirely replaced, his head returned right to where it had been, without a single scratch. Takumi's like a starfish! His entire body is his brain! Even if you cut off one part, that part will just grow back, and the brain with it will be back as good as new. At least I think it's the starfish that its entire brain is more or less encapsulated in its entire body. Don't quote me on that. It's been a long time since I've studied marine biology. Like years. So my information on that is years out of date, probably. Maybe. Norose awakened to an understanding. He could not win this fight. Physical attacks with his D-sword were useless. The delusional attack denying the boy's reason for existence had been taken in and used for an alternate purpose. The current Nishijo Takumi was, all too removed from human normalcy, all too distorted of an existence, all too fitting as a monster. And yet, despite it all, Norose had no intention of conceding. His next thought was to utilize Noa2's power to bombard Takumi with innumerable antiparticles. Bombardment with antiparticles could transform any known existence into negative matter, ending ultimately in self-collapse. If disruption from the surface was not viable, then collapse must be undertaken from within.
そうなんだね。
Norose's thoughts have been read by Takumi. The shine of Takumi's D-sword transformed from red to black. A black flame enveloped the blade. It wriggled forth, extending outward. Its shape resembled that of a dark, colossal serpent.
そして現れるのよ。
It roamed throughout the dome as if constrained by it. Toward the ceiling, toward the floor, as though it was licking them up, as though it was scraping them away. It simply consumed.
邪神の黒き大樹、あらゆる崩壊を飲み込み、邪神王の身を砕くことのできる同質にして異質なるもの。
Well, how about that? Yase's prophecy was 100% on the money. You make a lot of money being a fortune teller. The body of the colossal serpent was composed of antiparticles. With a mere touch, it could send any known object into self-collapse. A torrent of destruction composed of near infinite greed.
触手芸はあんまり好みじゃないけど。
Really? We're gonna read a tip about tentacle porn of all things here and now.
Don't let your kids watch it!
Okay, whatever. Whatever. Tentacle porn. A genre of pornography depicting women being subjected to various horrible acts perpetrated by a tentacle monster. Who said it had to be only women? Tentacle porn is very prominent in eroge, to the point of it becoming its own subgenre. These games should not be played by anyone under the age of 18. Well, that goes without saying! There and then, Takumi's D-sword swung, its point tip fixed on Norose. The dark serpent, winding itself in a coil, curved its body like a whip. Its jaws snapped at Norose.
まさかこれほどとは。
Not once had Norose ever seen such a phenomenon from a D-sword. He could not discern whether it was the hidden power of all gigalomaniacs, or merely Takumi's delusion. The dark fangs eroded Norose's body, and he began to collapse. All too slowly, like a frog slowly dissolving in the belly of a snake. Darkness swallowed him. He felt no pain. By nature, his death should have been instant. But that was not what Takumi wished for. Realizing this, Norose's lips twisted into a derisive smile. Norose had no fear of death. One could say that the ideals he pursued had been accomplished with the completion of Noa2.
私を殺してもノア2には誰も近づけない永久期間なんですよそれは 人類を未来永劫にわたって管理し続ける。ただ座して眺めているだけではない、人の幸福のために干渉してくる人工の神なのです。
Norose was God's inventor, so to speak. As long as Noah 2 continued to exist, mankind would not perish, and the eternal utopia Norose sought would become real. However,
あんたなら近づけるんでしょ。
yes, he can. Remember my earlier suggestion, Takumi? Why don't we try using him to do our dirty work for us? The serpent's body wriggled and writhed with Norose in its grasp, lifting his body into the air.
それならあんたは鍵だ。
Norose was astonished, but soon enough, his face changed into an expression of pure agony. The serpent swung about his body with ease. I guess I might as well read that tip now. Perpetual motion machine, a device that can continue operation without receiving energy from external sources. Yeah, pretty self-explanatory. Takumi shot a glance at Rimi. Their eyes met. Just what was Rimi feeling as she watched him? Reading her mind would have been effortless. And yet, Takumi did nothing of the sort. It seemed I was able to save you after all. He quickly averted his eyes. His gaze then shifted to the still humming Noah 2. The throne of God, where none could stand a foot. A cradle which showed naught but dreams of bliss.
ごめん。
He apologized to no one in particular.
僕は人類にとっての敵かもね。
The eternal utopia this device would have brought. A future without conflict. Takumi would extinguish them with his own two hands. Was that right? Or was it wrong? Takumi could not give an answer to that.
でも神話でもよくあるでしょ。神だって女絡みでうだうだやってる。だから僕も
Will sacrifice the happiness of mankind out of love for a girl. Oh my lord. Even in context, that sentence is just hilarious to me. Takumi, D-sword in hand, bent his arms in a giant arc.
突き破れ!
He thrust it forth. Just like a javelin, the colossal serpent of darkness charged straight ahead. With the bait known as Norose impaled by its tip, it flew straight toward Noah 2. An enormous serpent of antiparticles, capable of terminating any known object. It had no will of its own. Thus, it was not something that could have been warped nor distorted. With the greedy impulse to destroy, using Norose as the key, the delusional barrier was easily smashed to pieces. I recognize this rain. When the rain begun to fall, there had just been a huge explosion. And its blast. Its blast blew away my body like it was nothing more than a rag doll. Next thing I knew,
I found myself lying here. Those eyes were always watching me. The stare pierced through the thick, pitch-black rain clouds and poured down on me like rain. Don't look at me. My body couldn't stop shivering, not from the chill of the rain, but rather the ice-cold rubble against my back. So terribly cold. A gaze pierced me from the heavens. Who it belonged to, I couldn't say. As if to escape it, I raised my head to look at the environment around me. There I saw a ruined city. There I saw despair. There I saw death. There I saw nothingness. Not a soul was there. Not a soul was moving. Not a soul was left alive. The only thing I could hear was the sound of the rain continuing to pour. At this rate, everything, both the living and the dead, would it all be gently embraced and washed away? How nice it would be if all this was just a delusion, but that didn't seem to be the case. I couldn't move my body. I could only move my eyes and neck, and even then, just barely. I couldn't use that monstrous power from before. My body was shivering, but that was nothing more than a physiological phenomenon. It wasn't happening by my own will. I didn't want my body to tremble. If I couldn't move it freely, then it wasn't my body. Or maybe I've never had free will ever since I was born. Nobody knows exactly where the soul resides. Bearing that in mind, how could anyone say that there was a soul inside this body of mine? But then where exactly was I now? Was I really here? Was I anywhere at all? In this shattered world, where all stood still, where all that could be heard was the rain of death, suddenly another sound echoed through it. A solitary existence began to emerge from the sea of nothingness. Who are you? Is your skin so pale because it had been numbed by the chill of the rain? Or was it because you were already dead? And yet the girl wasn't shivering. And those eyes of hers, nearly hidden by her bangs. Don't look at me. They looked so terribly sad. They looked as if they held a hint of madness. They looked as if they reflected nothing. If she and I were the only ones left in the world, if we stared into each other's eyes like this for all eternity, would my world be reduced to the reflection in her eyes? Would her world be reduced to the reflection in my eyes? The only thing reflected in her eyes was me. The only thing reflected in my eyes was her. When I thought of it that way, the world immediately seemed so much smaller. Suddenly, a flash of static reached my ears, one endlessly beautiful, yet deeply discordant. She lowered her head and spread her arms wide, almost as if preparing to take off, to soar high above the rain clouds, or as if trying to catch all of the falling rain.
あなたを見つめる妄想
From where I was on the ground, I couldn't see the expression on that lowered head of hers. Behind this thin veil of rain, just what kind of face are you making? An angel? Were those dancing feathers of light blessing me? Or... I see. I finally understand. She's going to use that to kill me. The girl slowly kneeled to the ground before my collapsed body, with her head still lowered. She gently took my own in her hands. I surrendered my body to her grasp. I was just relieved that she wasn't looking at me. In my ear, I heard a whisper. Guarded by static, it was as beautiful as it was discordant. There's nothing to apologize for. If I don't disappear, the other me, the real me, will die. So, that's why I'm okay with this. In fact, I'm really glad I got to be erased by you. It's not a bad end for a monster like me. I don't have any regrets. A warm, soft, gentle, sweet sensation. Miraculously, as if it were an anesthetic, the shivering in my body slowly began to die down. Her soft breath tickled my cheeks. It smelled so sweet. Suddenly I sensed something pressing against my chest. The large sword she held tore through my skin, bored into my flesh, weaved through my bones, and slowly sank through the center of my body. But, given to the anesthesia of her kiss, I no longer felt any pain. I would never have imagined that I would get such a kind death. Just the thought of it broke my heart, leaving me on the verge of tears. Trying to hide them, I looked past the girl's head and up toward the ashen sky, where the rain continued to pour. Wait, that's it? That can't be it, can it? Is there something that happens? Is there stuff that happens after the credits? Like, we don't actually see her fully plunge the blade into him, so... For all I know, she doesn't go through with it. It just leaves things on an ambiguous note. Strong implications, if anything, but that's all they are. Implications. I'm gonna wait and see what happens with after the credits are done. Reach the Silent Sky ending. So that really is it, then. It just ends like that. Yeah, no, that ending definitely does not feel conclusive at all. Feels like something's missing from it. But maybe that's the point, because, well, some of my viewers have told me that once I reach the first ending of the game, regardless of whatever choices I make with the delusion triggers along the way, I unlock the ability to see the other endings of the game. So, if there is more that takes place after the ending I just saw, then maybe that is the true ending, whatever it is, and I just simply need to figure out how to reach it. Extra. CG library is now available. Sound library is now available. Movie library is now available. Continue shortcut has been unlocked. Oh, is it? Shortcuts, huh? I take it that that means I can jump to certain portions of the story and just continue on from there. That could definitely prove useful when it comes to replaying certain sections. Let me check out some of these extras things. I'm not going to go over every little thing. Reached endings. 1 of 9 endings? 9 endings. Oh, damn. Well, it took me 25 episodes to reach the Silent Sky ending. I wonder how long it'll take me to reach all the other ones. We could be here for a while, couldn't we? So, these are password-based, huh? Meaning if I already know the passwords, I could pretty much unlock these things straight from the get-go, yeah? Yep. I definitely recognize some of these images, including this thing here that I accidentally unleashed upon myself, much to my horror. I still remember how freaking spooked this whole scene left me when I first saw it. Made me think I did something. Wait a minute. Is that an image from the group dive? Or am I just imagining things? This looks familiar. Huh. Well, like I said, I'm not going to go for every single little thing here. I mean, most of this is just... It's a sound gallery, a CG gallery, and a movie gallery. I mean, you guys don't really need to see any of this. What is this, though, I wonder? Whose eyes are those eyes? The only thing I'm thinking of is it's tied to completion rate of some sort, and Maybe it has something to do with the delusions that I can trigger throughout the story. Like, depending on how many of those I see, both positive and negative, it counts towards this percentage mark. Maybe that's what this is. In which case, it just tracks how many of the different delusions I could witness throughout the entire game. Likewise, when it comes to the album achievement rate, I'm assuming it's just tied to the CG, sound, and movie libraries. Okay, so 1 ending down, 8 more to go, including what I'm going to assume is a true ending somewhere in the mix. Now, if I start a new game right from the get-go, I think my delusion triggers should be able to actually influence the stories now and how they progress in meaningful ways. Meaning that depending on certain choices I make throughout certain portions, I'll be able to go down different story paths that I wasn't able to do previously. So maybe I should... Okay, so in that case, then... To me, most of the obvious potential choices for different routes that could exist for this would probably be tied to some of the different characters. Like, for example, maybe if I have X number of positive delusions towards, say, Nanami or Ayase or something like that, I could potentially put myself on a story route where they're in the center, where they take center stage, and I go through a sequence of special events with them in mind, until eventually I get an ending involving them. Whereas if I just select a certain sequence of different triggers all throughout the entire story, I may be able to find different story paths that aren't necessarily tied to any one character, but are special in their own way. But that, of course, raises the obvious question of how the hell I'm supposed to figure those ones out. Because if I just do simple trial and error, it could definitely take me a while to figure it all out. Well, I probably could just make it easy on myself and just have a walkthrough handy, just in case I run into any troubles trying to get onto any of the other routes. And that way I can also at least see what the other routes are. But I'm not... Well... Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean... I'm worried that if I just know what certain routes actually exist, they may serve as massive spoilers in of themselves. So I'm not 100% sure how I would even want to approach it from a walkthrough without risking revealing too much to myself. Okay, you know what? I think I'm just gonna go ahead and end things here, and just save this as something for me to think about. Come the next time I make another episode for this series, because I'm sure by then I'll have some sort of game plan figured out. So with that being said, I hope everybody who's tuned in has enjoyed this latest episode of Chaos Head Noah.
And if you did, and you want to see more content from me, feel free to hit that like button and subscribe, and I will see you all next time for whatever new story branch I'm going to end up choosing to explore first. Take care, everybody.